I found another photo that I have to show you.
Oh, yes.
It is a set photo from Get Out. Have you seen Get Out?
Is that that horror film?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's very
I
good.
know what it's about, though.
It's very, very good. I would really recommend that you watch it. But someone posted a picture from the set of Get Out, with the full camera rig and everything entirely labeled.
Right.
Which is really, really, really cool. So, Get Out was shot on an Arri Alexa Mini, which is a wonderful cinema camera, and is what most of the films and stuff that you watch will be shot on. So, basically, there's a couple different cinema cameras that are very large at the moment. Most of them are Arri, and Arri is very well known for their kind of cooler, more like darker things. So most horror films we shot on an Arri Alexa. Lots of dramas are shot on Arri Alexas. They just kind of have that tone to them. And then you've got the red cinema cameras, which are a lot warmer and a lot friendlier. So a lot of sitcoms and stuff are shot on reds. Also, they're significantly cheaper. Right. And that's kind of the difference. And then there's also another, but I'm entirely blanking. You've also got all the Canon cinema cameras and stuff, and they're all for like A+, like color and whatever, that sort of thing. So that's kind of all the cameras. But this movie was shot on an Arri Alexa Mini, and it has a big A on it on the side. So Joe, I'll show you the photo while I talk about it. So that's the photo from set.
Yeah.
And there's a big A on the side of the camera, and that's just to label A cam and B cam. So we also have A cams and B cams and stuff. Not really, because we have a multi-camera setup. But I would call these our A cams and that our B cam.
Right.
Or the other way around, that our A cam, that our B cam. It kind of depends on how I end up editing it and how that shot looks. But yeah, so your A cam is just your main camera, and your B cams are the ones that you cut to get a different angle.
Right.
Then it also has a couple things for viewing. So it has an electronic viewfinder kind of attached to it. So that's this big boy here. That's the electronic viewfinder. And it's just so that you can actually look into it and see the image. It also has a monitor on the top so that other people can see it. The reason you would have a monitor and an electronic viewfinder is that when you're looking into the electronic viewfinder, there's no other distractions. You're just looking into the viewfinder. And B, you don't have other light sources glaring on the screen or anything like that. Like it's perfectly... what you see in there is essentially the image that you have. My headphone's falling out. So yeah, those are the two monitoring options that they have, is that viewfinder and a monitor. And then they also have a battery plate at the back with the battery, and that powers everything on the camera. So that powers the camera itself and all the accessories, so all the viewfinders and that sort of thing. Then on the front of the camera, which is technically called the lens, you can see there, that's the focus. So there's a motorized focus ring on the camera.
Yeah.
For another person to pull focus. So you'll have the director. Sometimes it's a director. Sometimes they'll hire a cinematographer for it. You'll have the director who's actually controlling the camera, and they're just moving it back and forth and side to side and whatever, and panning and that sort of thing. And then you'll have someone else on the crew who's doing focus cranking. Right. So they're choosing where the focus is, and usually the director will tell them exactly where it is prior to the actual shot.
Yeah.
And then you also have a zoom control, which is essentially the exact same, but normally the director will have control of that. So on this rig, you can see that it's just to the left there. So they'll be holding the camera with one hand for panning and turning and pushing, and then they'll have their other hand on the electronic zoom so that they can zoom in while they're filming.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then they have a matte box on the front, which is that thing. That's a matte box. Matte boxes are there to reduce flares. So that's kind of a stylistic choice. J.J. Abrams loves his lens flares, so I would assume he never uses a matte box.
Right.
But it's also there to insert filters in front of the camera, because a lot of these cinema lenses don't have threads to put filters on.
Yeah.
And so you could add a like an ND filter, which is like, so that if it's really bright, a good example of an ND filter is like, you know how if you're filming a video outside and it's really bright, you get that really weird kind of motion in the video where it doesn't look very natural.
Yeah.
That's because to compensate, your camera is cranking the shutter speed to as high as it can. So with a neutral density filter, it's literally just like a dark piece of glass that you put in front of your camera. You just turn it, and then depending on, or it can be its own set thing. And that lets you kind of bring the shutter back down so that you can get a more natural motion blur. Because if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you really should only ever have your shutter speed at 1/60th of a second.
Right.
That's how you're going to get the most natural motion. This is me testing the motion of the cameras.
He's just waving at the...
Yes, I'm just going whap, whap, whap. And then there's also a label on the matte box, and that's just so that's just there. And that's just for them to make it easy on themselves, so they're not never guessing what filter is in the matte box. And then lastly, there's a couple rods on the bottom, on the tripod and around the camera, for them to mount accessories onto.
Wow. That is so cool.
There's so much stuff on cameras. It's just insane.
So with that, like the matte box and putting filters on it,
Yeah.
do they... So I'm going to explain this as a sound
Yes, go ahead.
point of view, and then hopefully you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
So normally when you're recording, you try and get like when you're starting off in audio engineering, whatever, you try and just get the cleanest sound you can, and then you do all your editing and try and manipulate the sound and whatever in post. Would you say that that's what they would do when they film movies, or sort of pro engineers, they sort of know what they need, what it needs to sound like, they know what they need to do to make it sound better, and so they'll do some processing as on its way in as well?